top 10 teams in college football coming out of the spring. And again, obviously a lot of this has to do with returning talent. Was at the Oregon spring game, have watched some other spring highlights. Some schools, in the case of Texas, don't even do spring games open to the public anymore. Kind of interesting, not really sure what you're worried about. It's not like the portal exists anymore after the springtime, or even during the springtime, or even during the fall. Regardless, I guess you don't want coaches to try to reach out to your players, tell them to come sit for a year, whatever the case. Anyways, so I will go 1 through 10. Again, most of this is based on returning talent from last year. I think you have to start with that. Obviously, you do get new portal guys every year who are going to make big-time impacts, particularly at the quarterback spot. But with number 1, I have the Oregon Ducks. Insane amount of talent returning on this roster. I think next year they'll have the most players drafted in school history. They have, by the athletics count, 5 projected first-round picks. That's not even counting Coy Parrish or some of these other guys for next draft. And again, who knows if that actually happens. But Dante Moore, Dierre Hill, Jordan Davison, Evan Stewart, Decoria Moore, Jeremiah McClellan, Jamari Johnson will all for sure play in the NFL someday. Michael Bennett, new left tackle, probably will. And then you talk about the defensive guys. Obviously, the front four, the entire front four is coming back. Mateo, Bear, Amari Washington, and Tatum Tuioti. And those 4 guys, that really gives me the vibe of Ohio State from 2 years ago when Jack Sawyer came back, when JT came back, when a lot of those guys came back. I think they had Caden McDonald back then. They had a lot of just impressive vets on that team. Now, the Ohio State defense last year was even more loaded from a pure talent standpoint. But when you talk about like the togetherness, it's one reason I like Georgia a lot this year, because Gunnar Stockton's been there since 2022, which is a total rarity in college football for a quarterback to hang out that long on the same campus. When you have that much returning talent who are also NFL players who have also been with the program the entire time. Bear Alexander is not. He transferred in from USC after Georgia, but those other guys have. Washington and Tatum Tuioti and obviously Mateo. Some other guys have been in there as well. Jerry Mixon, obviously Brandon Finney, and all the young corners and DBs from last year's team is back. Plus you add Coy Parrish. Man, I mean, just the togetherness of that the entire defensive unit, but especially the front 4 and the front 7, that is completely next level. I mean, completely next level. And by the way, it's not like Indiana ran all over Oregon in the semifinals last year. They threw on them quite well, certainly dominated the game. But Dante Moore kind of gave that game away, right? The early pick 6 on the first play of the game to D'Angelo Pons, and then he fumbles back at his own 10 or 15. He basically, there was another fumble in there. It was a disaster game from the Oregon offense. It wasn't even really the defense's fault. Now they gave up 50-something, and that's kind of inexcusable. That being said, so much of that was Dante Moore just giving the game away. With him back this year, ideally playing a lot better than that, and then all the juice they have, I mean, they have so much talent with Hill and Davison and Stewart and Moore. I was at the spring game. Stewart and Moore just totally popped off the page. The running backs didn't at all. They both played. Running backs didn't, and that is a little bit of a concern in terms of the O-line. So you have Poncho back on the O-line. You still have Janoris Wilson, who's been in the mix for a while. Fox Crater, who's been in the mix for a while. Dave Iuli, who's going to start at one of the guard spots. So basically you're looking to replace 3 offensive linemen, World and Pregnon, notably going to the draft. It seems like this Michael Bennett, the third guy from Yale, is going to either start at right tackle or play a lot. Fox Crater, Evergreen High School. Shout out to Clark County, Vancouver, Washington. Potentially the left tackle. He was a 4-star recruit. He's been with the program for a little while. I'm really getting in the weeds here, but I did a deep dive on Oregon today. Janoris Wilson, been with the program a little while. And then you have this true freshman 5-star, Emmanuel Iheanacho. I think he committed on the Pat McAfee show, if I'm not mistaken. And he is a 5-star and every bit of a 5-star and has a chance to play as a true freshman. So those are kind of your rotating tackles and guard spot guys with Poncho and Iuli obviously back. I do think that from what I can gather from the reporters who are on the ground every day, it sounds like Fox Crater is going to start at left tackle, and then it's kind of anyone's guess at right tackle. I would guess Bennett or Janoris Wilson. So anyways, that's kind of where you're at. But like a lot of those guys, Harkey last year, You can rotate in and out, guard, tackle, etc. Obviously, the big question mark with Oregon is the coordinators. So Will Stein takes over as the head coach at Kentucky. Unbelievable opportunity for a guy in his 30s to be an SEC head coach. He has roots there, played at Louisville. He has Kentucky roots in general. And then Tosh Lupoy goes back to his alma mater of Cal. By the way, does a good job of keeping JKS there, the do-everything All-American freshman quarterback. So he stays there as well. And then you replace him with Chris Hampton, who is the DB's coach / co-DC. The Oregon DBs, I know they got torched against Indiana in the semis, but in general, that's been an unbelievably good unit under Chris Hampton's guidance and coaching. That Texas Tech game, Baron Morton, the Texas Tech QB, looked like he just wanted to, wave the white flag. I mean, Texas Tech on offense basically waved the white flag in that game because Oregon didn't do much on offense. Again, it was another struggle of a game for the Oregon offense against a good team, but the Oregon defense was just lights out in that game. And anyways, they win 23-0. It was 16-0 basically at the buzzer, and then Oregon punches one more in. Again, didn't do much on offense in that game, but didn't need to when your defense was that good. So that's kind of the mystery of the coaching staff is like Drew Maringer getting elevated, Maringer getting elevated, and then Christian as well. I imagine the offense isn't going to change much in terms of like pure scheme. And obviously when you have Dante there and all those playmakers back, the two awesome running backs, the two awesome receivers, plus McClellan, plus the tight end, Jamari Johnson, like that just the talent on this roster. All of those guys are going to play in the NFL. Mateo will, Amari will, Tatum Tuioti will, Bear Alexander. There was one point mid-season this past year where Mateo and Amari Washington were both projected like top 10, top 15 picks in the draft, not just first rounders, like high first rounders. So to get both those guys to come back, I'm sure they're making a lot of money. But that's big time. Year 5 for Lanning. Phil Knight is 88. And you know what? I do think there's something to Lanning taking his lumps. He hasn't taken many, but Lanning taking his lumps against Cignetti last year. Dante taking his lumps against Cignetti last year. The nucleus of that front four on defense, I just can't stop thinking about. Dante and the O-line need to play much better in big games, no question about it. But I think they're capable of doing that. So it's an Oregon team that, I think, you go to Ohio State, you have Michigan at home. I believe you go to USC early in the season. You have Boise State at home. So you have some somewhat challenging games in there for sure, but it's a manageable regular season schedule. And then you get to the postseason and, I just think the veteran quarterback and the veteran pass rush of a team who has all been there for a long time is just, that's a massive advantage. Like, I know Mendoza was plug and play, new guy last year, but he was 22, 23, fifth year senior. And a lot of those guys on IU had been JMU guys who came over with Sig, who had been there for a year plus another offseason. So just the nucleus is huge, I think, for Oregon. That's basically what you hang your hat on is Dante Moore and all the skill guys, but also just the defensive guys who have been within the program for a while. Okay, so that is off the rip. Man, I already went 11 minutes. Okay, I'll try to speed this up. Number 2, Indiana. Until further notice, Curt Cignetti is totally the best coach in the sport. Indiana is a national title caliber team. They lost Aiden Fisher. They lost D'Angelo Pons. Omar Cooper Jr. was a first-round pick. They lost Elijah Surratt. Obviously, Fernando Mendoza went number 1 overall. They lost both their running backs, Black and Hemby, who are really good players. They lost a ton of great talent from last year's team. That being said, you can't doubt these guys. Josh Hoover, fifth-year senior, going to be 23 when he takes over next year. That's the Cignetti recipe. He doesn't care about your 5-star recruit who's a freshman. Cool. Bryce Underwood is like the anti-Cignetti quarterback. He doesn't want a 5-star freshman who's making a lot of money. He wants the 23-year-old guy who's played for 4 or 5 years already, who wants to develop one more year but already is mature, already has developed in college. And, the difference between a 23-year-old and 18-year-old obviously is a ton. So that's the recipe. And I'm surprised a lot more programs don't follow that. I mean, Michigan struggled because they had to play a freshman last year. Notre Dame struggled in big games. They had to play a freshman at QB last year. Even Dante, first year starting last year, obviously struggled in some big moments. So, I like the Mendoza method, basically the Cignetti method. He had Curtis Rourke the year before that. Mendoza is a generational quarterback, though. I don't think it's one of those things where you can just say, yeah, see, just plug in another fifth-year senior, plug and play. I've seen Josh Hoover in person a couple times. Really good player, really mobile, like really fast, really strong arm, perfect dual threat guy who does like to throw it more but can run it. Everything about the guy I like a ton. He has Charlie Becker back. He's a great player. He mossed that Buckeye in the Big Ten title game to basically clinch the Big Ten title in Indy. Nick Marsh, Michigan State transfer receiver. I haven't seen him too much, but people are really high on him. So those two should be a really big-time duo for Hoover. Also, IU's D-line. I think outside of obviously Mendoza was the best part of their team last year. Besides him, I thought their ability to just stuff the run was probably the craziest part about IU football last year. They held Ohio State to 58 rushing yards on 2.2 yards a carry. There were so many times in the red zone, second half, Ohio State just needed a yard or two, and they couldn't get it. And then they shanked a field goal, and then they went for it on 4th and short and couldn't get it. Sayan would get stuffed. And then Bama abandoned the run altogether in that Rose Bowl, 38-3 the final. Tyreek Tucker and Mario Landino, two huge D tackles, are both back for IU. They were starters last year. And then Elijah Hardy as well. I think he was 21. Really reliable linebacker for them. Again, Aiden Fisher I thought was the best linebacker in the sport last year, even including Sonny Styles and Arvell Reese. I'm talking college linebacker. I thought Fisher was that special. But Hardy is very, very good, and very reliable. So they still have a really reliable front seven. And, Bryant Haynes, the DC, is back. I believe Shanahan, the OC, is definitely back. And then obviously you have Cignetti. As long as, I think the only coach I want to say they lost from their whole roster, it's not either coordinator, so both those guys are back. They lost like their quarterbacks coach to the NFL, but besides that, everyone else is back. As long as Cignetti's there, and as long as he has a veteran quarterback who is a good player, the Hoosiers are going to be favored in almost every game. Obviously, it takes more than that, but my respect level for Cignetti is just that high. Number 3, I have Miami. The reason I have Miami this high, Darian Mensah. He's that special. He's that dude. He set 3 different single-season records for Duke last year. Let's see. I wrote them down. I think it was passing yards, total yards, and total touchdowns. Led Duke to their first outright ACC football championship since 1962, which is just ridiculous. And, they paid him a lot of money. He had a 2-year, $8 million deal with Duke. Apparently Miami had to buy him out of that and then pay him around 6 or 7. So they all in may have gone $10 million all in for 1 year of Mensah. He has another year of eligibility after this, so he can get paid again. His buddy, Cooper Bartkate, who is his top receiver at Duke, came with him. He was part of that Prime 112 dinner. So he came with him. Dude, he's really good. And it's funny because he's a little bit of, he doesn't have the craziest vert, but he makes crazy catches. And their chemistry is just next level. And I know that you lose Mesidor, and I know that you lose Bain, and those guys were badasses. They were bad dudes. They were 2 of the best players in college football last year. Going to be impossible to replace. That being said, I do think Miami's going to be better on offense next year because I think Mensah's that special. Believe they have Mark Fletcher back, the running back. They definitely have Malachi Toney back, the receiver. Obviously, they brought in Bartkate, like I just mentioned, the Duke receiver. And Mensah is he's special. He's a dual threat guy. He's really smart. He can heave it downfield. And, I think Carson Beck, when he got hit really hard against Texas right before halftime of that SEC title game in 24, Kirby Smart dialed up a Hail Mary, which was kind of unnecessary, and Carson Beck got absolutely killed. That really effed his arm up. He got surgery, obviously, missed the rest of the season. Stockton had to come in. But if you watch Miami last year, they didn't really throw the ball much. They really didn't. And they didn't really throw it downfield, especially is what I mean. They didn't, how many times, you could probably count on 2 hands how many times you saw Carson Beck throw a deep ball last year. And part of that is because I think his arm was just effed up from that hit and from that surgery. I think it'll probably continue to get better. But point being, he had an unhealthy arm. It was kind of like Texas 2 years ago when Quinn Ewers got that midseason oblique surgery. And it was why is Texas not throwing the ball long? It's dude, because Quinn can't get a lot of torque on the ball right now because he just had ab surgery 3 weeks ago. And I think that was what was going on with Carson Beck last year. But Mensah, man, he can launch it. He's smart. Dude, That is ridiculous that they got him. By the way, they keep that Corey Heatherman guy and Shannon Dawson, so their coordinators are still there. Miami's in a very good spot. Number 4, the Texas Longhorns. This might be a reach for some people. Arch Manning, so good last year. They finished 10-3. They bullied Vanderbilt. I was at that game. Beat up A&M, beat up Michigan. They did lose to Georgia 35-10 in Athens in November. Certainly got cracked there, but it was a tie game or a one-score game in the fourth quarter. And their offensive line just continued to implode. That was the problem with Texas last year. If you guys listen to this pod, you heard me say it 9 million times. If you're not going to block San Jose State, you sure as hell are not going to block Florida or Georgia. And that's what happened. They couldn't block San Jose State and couldn't block anyone. Couldn't block OU, still won. Couldn't block Florida, lost. Georgia, lost. Couldn't really block A&M. Arch just ran away from it. Like, their D-line, they get Gooseby back, but their O-line was just nowhere near good enough last year. It was a total whiff from Sark and from Brandon Harris, the GM. Anyways, they do replace Pete Kwiatkowski with Will Muschamp, who was kind of a DC in waiting. He was an offensive assistant last year. I saw him at a restaurant last year midseason. I was like, oh, yeah, it's Will Muschamp. That's right. He's a defensive assistant here. And he was, by the way, Muschamp, before he got the Florida and South Carolina jobs, he was the... Sorry, I heard a noise. He was the DC for Texas under Mac Brown from 2008 to 2010. So he's very familiar with Austin and recruiting the area and just the South and everything. So I do think that Texas will improve on defense, even though they lost Anthony Hill Jr. and Michael Taft and Malik Muhammad and a lot of these big-time names. They lost a lot. I think they have Colin Simmons back. That being said, let me pull up the Texas depth chart real quick. I think just with Muschamp, you probably feel a little bit better than you did with Kwiatkowski. So let's see. Yep, they still have Colin Simmons back. That's really their only big-time name back on defense. They lost a lot of guys. Yeah, that's really their only big-time guy back, and he is nasty, and the Texas front was nasty last year. Jelani McDonald, good safety, is back. But, outside of those two guys, it's a little bit of a no-name defense. So the offense might need to carry the load. They do bring in Cam Coleman from Auburn. Lost Parker Livingston famously to the Red River rival, Oklahoma, after they gave Cam Coleman a big bag. Kind of lowballed Livingston is the report. And the report from Kirk Bohls, legendary sports writer in Texas, is that Livingston got $800K from Oklahoma. I don't know who leaked that to him, but that's the report. It hasn't been refuted, so go get your bag. This is the rule of the NIL. You get more money and you leave. It's simple as that. It wasn't even a decision for Parker, who, by the way, his roommate was Arch Manning. He was Arch Manning's favorite target. He'd always dreamed of playing for Texas. And, oh, by the way, he was in line to basically be the wide receiver 1 or wide receiver 2. And he was like, yeah, I'm good. I'm just going to go get more money. It's tough, man. I don't like it. You don't have to like it. But you also can't fault the kid for turning down an extra couple $100,000. So that's life. Crazy that he went to the rival, though. That's nuts. They asked Arch about that, and he didn't bite the bait. But I do like Hollywood Smothers a lot from NC State. Raleek Brown from ASU. Those are 2 new running backs. It's just going to come down to the O-line improvement, man. That's really what it's going to come down to for the Horns. I'm trying to not speed through this, but I could literally just talk about these teams for hours. So where am I at? 21 mark? Okay. Ole Miss, number 5. Trinidad Chambliss. Best quarterback in the sport for my money. It was unbelievable what he did all year last year coming in for Austin Simmons, and I think probably would have won the Heisman if Mendoza didn't exist. Like if that IU season hadn't have happened, I think Chambliss would have won the Heisman. He was unbelievable. Ole Miss was arguably the second best story in the sport behind Indiana all year long. No one believed in them. Everyone was writing them off. Chambliss is a D2 kid coming in as the backup QB. Not sure how he didn't beat Simmons out or how they didn't award Simmons. Anyways, regardless, Chambliss comes in, basically leads Ole Miss to, what were they, 11-1, 12-1. They lost at Georgia barely. I think that was their only regular season loss, if I'm not mistaken. And then you play Georgia great. You beat Georgia in the CFP quarters, 39-34, and you take a late lead on Miami in the semis, and you think you're going to win the game, and then your defense can't get that final stop. But, dude, to have Lane Kiffin leave you before the start of the playoff and you to beat Georgia and nearly beat Miami, aka nearly go to the Natty / win it, that was unbelievable. And I also, like, when I judge college quarterbacks, I look at how they do against the DCs who I respect the most. Kirby Smart is probably the most well-respected defensive mind in college football, along with Brent Venables right now. I think that's pretty sound. You could make the claim for Bryant Haynes, the DC for Indiana now, based on what they did last year. But those are pretty clearly two of the top guys. He absolutely torched Georgia twice. His defense couldn't get a stop at all in the first game. They got a couple stops in the second game, and they won 39-34. If I was starting a college franchise right now, and you're drafting, like you're drafting in franchise mode, my very first pick over literally anyone in college football would be Trinidad Chambliss. He's just that special of a dual threat guy. I can't wait to see what they do. They did lose a lot in the draft and to the portal, but Pete Golding and Trinidad, see if they bring it home. By the way, for Oregon fans, former Duck Blake Purchase, now a member of the Ole Miss program, I guess probably starting as a linebacker or edge for them this year. Okay, number 6, I have Georgia. Bring back a lot of big names. Gunnar Stockton, again, I kind of mentioned it off the top, but in an era where players are jumping and you're looking for the next best thing, the next job, the next bag, Stockton stood in there, learned behind Carson Beck, and finally filled in for Carson Beck after he got throttled in the SEC title game and hurt. Filled in for him in that game in the second half, helped them beat Texas, and then started that Notre Dame playoff game. Couldn't quite pull it out, but he's just tough as nails. Obviously, last year, first full year as a starter, puts his body on the line. The win at Tennessee where he hits Humphreys down the right sideline for a touchdown on 4th and 9. Unbelievable throw. If they don't make that throw and the 2-point conversion, obviously they lose that game in regulation. The Ole Miss comeback, like, dude, Stockton was unbelievable. The dominance over Texas, like, dude, he was so good, man. Like, he's so good and so tough. It doesn't really look fun to play quarterback at Georgia when he's playing it. Like, he's got the running back visor and face mask going. Like, he's kind of a running back out there. They obviously designed a lot of running plays for him. It looks painful. Honestly, it really looks painful, but a big shout out to him because he's just got toughness, man. And I think the fact that he's been at UGA since 2022, that says a lot about, his character, his desire to win for the team, and also just that ability to gel with your teammates and that longevity for staying with your program for that long. I mean, he'll leave in 2027. He's a 5th-year senior, so like, dude, he's been there for a long time. In terms of quarterbacks who have played that many snaps with one school, I mean, he's got to be the very top, right? Like, Hoover now transferred to Indiana. Dante Moore's only been at Oregon 3 years, started 1. Trinidad obviously transferred him from Ferris State before last season. Like, just off the top of my head, I mean, Arch has been at Texas for a couple of years now, and he'll be a redshirt junior. But yeah, Arch and Gunnar got to be the most experienced QBs out there with the same school. Certainly up there, unless I'm just completely blanking on one. But a lot of respect for guys like that, man, because that'll keep you as a team leader. I think that's just really good for the cohesion. And when you talk about Georgia last year, it was their defense that wasn't really good enough. Like, they lost Ole Miss in the playoff 39-34. They gave up almost 40. And again, Trinidad's that special. But, I thought there were times where they looked amazing, like against Texas, but there were other times where they just didn't look as good against Ole Miss and against Tennessee. And, I think that defensive inconsistency is ultimately what did them in. They do bring back KJ Bolden and Ellis Robinson, safety in a corner there. So a more experienced defense. They still have Lawson Lucky, the tight end, back. They still have Nate Frazier and Chauncey Bowens, the running backs, back. I kind of wonder if they don't get back to running the damn ball a little bit more, and instead of just opening it up a ton. They kind of had to open it up a ton last year because the defense just kept getting smoked at times, and they had to score to keep up. But I kind of feel like they should maybe run the ball a lot more and see if they could shorten games that way. Number 7, Oklahoma. I was higher than Oklahoma than most last year. The Bowen Bros, who at one point were committed to Oregon, are just sensational DBs. R. Mason Thomas, again, Aiden Fisher, Ruben Bain, Akeem Mesidor. He was one of the 3, 4, 5 best players on defense in the sport last year. He was unbelievable. Kip Lewis, great linebacker. Taylor Ween, great linebacker / edge. Like, dude, they just got some nasty dudes. And Brent Venables just has a way about him. Obviously, he's kind of a defensive mastermind. Made his hay, if you will, to get famous anyway when he was the DC of Clemson. But I just think he gets his players to just play with a nasty edge, and certainly had that with Oklahoma. Their offense way too one-dimensional last year. The Jade Knott thing didn't pay off. I don't know if he got hurt or what. He just kind of didn't play much. Isaiah Satania, really fast receiver. He's basically the guy who could open up the offense for them, but unless he was making a catch and a run, they didn't have a ton of explosive plays on offense. Didn't really have any explosiveness on offense in general. Again, Satania, great player, game breaker, but besides him, they didn't have a lot. So they add Parker Livingston, again, famously Arch's roommate and Arch's favorite target last year. I think that's a really good trio there with John Mateer at QB, again, super experienced guy, and Livingston and Satania. I think Blaylock's their running back, who is back again. They have some other players as well. It's Oklahoma. They're always going to have talent on offense. But defensively, Bill and Bros are back. Kip Lewis is back. R. Mason Thomas not back. Believe he was a first or second round pick, but regardless, I know he's gone. So he'll be tough to replace, but their defense is just so nasty. And then when you have Mateer and a couple really good skill guys back, they should be a really good team. And remember, their schedule last year was like unbelievably brutal. Let me see if I can find their schedule this year real quick. So this year they have UTEP at Michigan, New Mexico at Georgia, Texas, Kentucky, Mississippi State, South Carolina, at Florida, Ole Miss, A&M, Missouri. 9-game conference schedule in the SEC this year. Again, that's tough, especially with at Michigan being one of your non-conference games. Texas Red River game, at Georgia. I mean, dang. 3 of those first 5 games are tough. At Michigan, at Georgia, neutral site versus Texas. Like, that's life in the SEC, man. But after that, it gets a lot easier. Kentucky, Mississippi State, South Carolina, Florida. Ole Miss is very good. A&M is pretty dang good. At Missouri. I mean, it's not an easy schedule. It's really not. But I think they can brave it. Number 8, Ohio State. Dude, I don't know what to make of Julian saying. Like, even in wins last year, it wasn't very good. Like, at UW, I think they won like 24-9, maybe. Michigan, I think it was like a similar score. There were so many times last year where I was like, they're dominating this game because their defense is unbelievable, but they're not really dominating it on the scoreboard, and their offense certainly isn't dominating, especially with Carnell Tate and Jeremiah Smith at wide receiver, 2 first-round receivers. Like, I'm not even putting it all on saying I think Ryan Third Base Day was way too conservative last year. And I don't think he's going to have the choice to be conservative this year because I don't think their defense is going to be nearly as good. They do bring Matt Patricia back. New OC, by the way, Arthur Smith, former Falcons coach, former Steelers OC, because Brian Hartline, legendary Buckeye receiver, then legendary coach and recruiter, then very good OC, just took the head job at USF, Tampa. So he'll be down there running the Bulls. So they bring in Arthur Smith. Yeah, I didn't see it was saying last year. I kind of couldn't even believe he got the invite to New York City. I was like, I mean, nice numbers, but like, are you guys watching these games? I mean, they're winning like 27-9. Like, it's certainly the defense. Like, you should send Arvell Reese or Sonny Styles or Caleb Downs or Caden McDonald. Send one of those guys. They lost all of that talent. They lost so much talent from the defensive side of the ball. Igbinosu as well, one of their really good corners. So, man, I mean, it's Ohio State. They recruit as well as anyone, but they lost so much talent. That defense, I mean, they held Indiana to 13 points. They lost the Big Ten title game 13-10. They held Miami to 17 offensive points, saying through that pick 6. They lost that game 24-14. Like, if their offense was any better than 12 points a game, they probably win those games and have a strong chance to win the Natty. Their offense was just nowhere near good enough last year in the big games. And I don't know. Matt Patricia being back is amazing because he is an elite defensive mind. And maybe their defense is, it's not going to be better because their defense was completely lights out last year, but maybe their defense is very good and their offense, the mindset changes. I think you got to have a mindset change there for Ohio State offensively. Like, I don't know what that was last year. It just wasn't good enough on offense, and obviously that got exposed in their 2 games against elite teams, Indiana and Miami. We'll see if Day can do some better coaching on offense and Sane can make some better plays. Obviously, they still have Jeremiah Smith back. They lost Carnell Tate. Okay, last 2. Number 9, Texas A&M, and number 10, LSU. Let's take a look at A&M. Remember last year, they go 11-0 to start the season, and they had that last-second win at Notre Dame. Marcel Reed, downright magical last year. I thought he should have gotten an invite to New York City over Sam for sure. They did kind of crash out. They lost their rivalry game Thanksgiving weekend at Texas. They got packed up, and then they lost their home playoff game to Miami 10-3, which is just bizarre. Again, Miami's defense was incredible. Pass rush was incredible. Mark Fletcher controlled that game. They ran the ball pretty dang well and controlled the clock. But and also they got stopped not even inside the red zone, like inside the 10 a couple times, maybe even inside the 5 a couple times in that game. Really like Casey Concepcion. He is gone, but they do have Craver back, who's a really fast receiver. Torian York, linebacker number 21, he was a great player for them last year. Same with Cassius Howell. He's a lot more. He got a lot more notoriety. Both those guys are gone to the league. A&M had 13 NFL Combine invites, according to ESPN, more than any program in college football. So for people who are trying to kind of hate on A&M, like, dude, the talent level is there. Like, that's an objective stat there. 13 NFL players or 13 guys invited to the NFL Combine. Like, objectively, their talent is absolutely there. Schedule's going to be tough at LSU, at Missouri, at Bama, at Oklahoma, home against Texas and Tennessee. It's tough, man. It's a really tough schedule. I know last year people were kind of clowning their schedule. They beat LSU, basically got Brian Kelly fired, and then didn't really beat a lot of other teams until they played Texas and then got worked by Texas. So I know people were kind of clowning their schedule. Can't clown it this year, though, because that's a really, really tough schedule. So we will see how they do against that schedule. Again, Mike Elko, Marcel Reed, great coach, great QB, love Craver. Ruben Owens, really good running back for them. Yeah, I mean, I just think, again, A&M very rarely wins double-digit games, so for them to even start 11-0, trash the schedule all you want, incredibly impressive. Reed's that good. Were they 11-1 good? Probably not, but again, they hung in there with Miami, so their defense is clearly pretty dang good. Cassius Howell's amazing. Yeah, man, I mean, it's just, they have a chance when they have Marcel Reed, but he crashed out against Miami. But that win against Notre Dame was magical. 42-41, I think, was the final. Reed, literally at the buzzer, basically, with no time remaining, hits that tight end on 4th and goal, or maybe there's a couple seconds left, 4th and goal, kind of runs to his left, gets flushed opposite his throwing shoulder, and has to scramble and turn around and hits the guy in traffic, by the way. I believe it was Drake Bowen, who's the captain of the Notre Dame defense, linebacker, great player, who was right there, and the tight end still made the grab as he was getting hit. Like, put it up there in A&M lore, A&M history, that put that play in the Louvre, as they say. Marcel Reed and A&M. I got them at 9, just out of respect for what they did last year. I have LSU at 10. They obviously crashed and burned last year, but they could be a national title team this year with Lane Kiffin now as their head coach and Sam Leavitt now as their quarterback. There are national championship-sized expectations for this LSU team. That's why you bring in Lane Kiffin. That's why you have one of the craziest off seasons in the history of the sport. You poach him from your fellow SEC West, and they don't do divisions anymore, but like your SEC West rival, right? I mean, dude, that was a brutal poach job mid-season. It was, black eye's a little harsh, but it was kind of a black eye on the program. They don't give a shit, but it was kind of a black eye on the LSU program, and a little bit of a black eye on the sport of college football in general and the SEC, to be like, you got one coach poaching, a coach from another conference. It's way different when you get Bob Chesney from James Madison if you're UCLA. Obviously, UCLA was a disaster last year under I already forgot his name. The running back who was there for a while. Total disaster. What's the guy's name? Deshaun Foster. Total disaster under Foster. But it's not like they were about to compete for a playoff game, you know? And it's not like, I guess actually technically Chesney did compete in a playoff game last year on the other side of it, on the James Madison side, but he stayed there and coached through the game. And yeah, they hung up 34 or so on Oregon. So they kind of hung with it. And, you know, a lot of those players are playing for maybe the chance to go follow Bob Chesney to UCLA and get an even bigger NIL deal. And now who's the coach of JMU? Sunbelt Billy Napier. Now the new coach at JMU. I saw the Dukes in person last year. I saw Bob Chesney in person at Texas State. Good team. They won that game. Really good quarterback, really tough offense to deal with. Obviously, they hung 30-something on Oregon at Autzen in that playoff game. Okay, I was getting sidetracked. That's your JMU football nugget for the day. The Lane Kiffin thing's just fascinating. Clearly a booster was like, here's $54 million to fire Brian Kelly, get him the hell out. Like, I'll pay one of the largest buyouts in the history of the sport. Here's the money. Get him out. Because, you know, I know the governor did a big press conference, big song and dance on, oh, man, the taxpayers of the state of Louisiana are now on the hook for Brian Kelly's buyout. Folks, if you saw that, don't be fooled by that politician. That's not how this works. You know how it works? You can go ahead and read the financial statements for LSU. I would imagine it's a public school, or you can just ask the athletic director, or you can just kind of take my word for it. In modern sports, it's not the AD whomever fires the football coach when there's a buyout that big. It's always the booster who's willing to pay it. And in this case, it was the booster who's willing to pay it. I've seen links to hedge fund bros who don't live in Louisiana, who are LSU boosters. It is not the taxpayers of Louisiana. I can promise you they are not on the hook for Brian Kelly's buyout. That would be the billionaire boosters who told the AD, Scott Woodward, who eventually got fired, by the way, for that buyout. He said, get him the hell out. And the booster probably said, get Scott Woodward the hell out too, honestly. Wild time. Like, that month of December, man, and then early January when the portal period starts, it's insane in college football right now. Like, I know Saban and Cap Hill are working on it. Saban and Urban and Trump are golfing together and having meetings in the White House together on C-SPAN. Like, you know, man, that needs to get figured out because, like, what happened to Ole Miss last year was just not cool. Just wasn't great for the sport, man. It just wasn't. And Lane, of course, not shockingly, was in the middle of all of it. He could have easily just stayed the coach there through Ole Miss's postseason and then taken the job. He definitely could have done that. I know what you're going to say about the portal. Just so you know, A, when a coach leaves, all the players get a chance to leave. They get like a 30-day window. B, for anyone playing in the postseason, they've now officially extended those windows. So if you make the Natty, you get like another 10 days to commit to a school. Yes, I know it does get really hard when you're recruiting. If you make the Natty, that's why what Signetti did last year was basically he was recruiting while prepping for Oregon because that was the big portal window right there. Insanely tricky. Again, I'm not saying it's right, but it's doable. But anyways, yeah, you know, Saban and Urban and Trump, hopefully you guys can get that figured out because we need a smoother December and January in college football. I know Dan Lanning spoke on that as well. Crazy times. But yes, as far as LSU's, you know, players, Portal King Kiffin, brought in Jace Brown, really fast dude from K-State, really, really fast. Eugene Wilson, really good receiver from Florida. And Prince, however you say his last name, Prince U from Ole Miss, their star edge player last year. The Portal King himself, Lane Kiffin, brought him in. The Sam Leavitt love affair was pretty funny. I think that Damon Williams was going to go to LSU. That's why he was trying to back out of his $4 million contract with UW to probably sign a $6 or $8 million deal with either LSU or Miami. Instead, UW's lawyers sue him. Sam Leavitt, I would go ahead and tip the lawyers of UW who stopped Damon Williams from getting that money. Either Sam Leavitt or Darian Mensah, one of the two. One of you guys needs to go ahead and tip some UW lawyers because they got you that bag, basically. Sam Leavitt's very good. Very good. Was hurt last year, but obviously the year before, along with Cam Scattaboo, led ASU to a near victory over Texas in the college football playoff and led them to the CFP in general. Amazing job by them there. Leavitt was very good last year until he got hurt. You know, Kenny Dillingham, I feel for him, man. He's just developing all these great players, and they're getting poached by programs with a ton of money, but that's how it goes. And he's been a really good sport about it at press conferences and on social media as well. But My expectations are really high for LSU. Blake Baker's their DC. He's back. I don't know all about their defensive personnel if the Weeks Bros are both back, but I mean, it's LSU, man. Like Nick Saban says, you shake a tree and a 5-star falls out in Louisiana. So they better start shaking some trees and getting some 5-stars in there. I'm sure they won't have a problem with it with the money they have. If they cut Brian Kelly a $54 million buyout check, whatever billionaire did that or high-level millionaire did that, they're going to cut plenty of checks to get talent in, as they already did in the portal with Levitt, Jace Brown, Eugene Wilson, and Prince. I'm excited for LSU, man. It's going to be a crazy-ass year on the Bayou trying to rebound from what happened last year. So there you go. Let's summarize it. Oregon at 1, Indiana at 2, Miami at 3, Texas at 4, Ole Miss at 5, Georgia 6, Oklahoma 7, Ohio State 8, Texas A&M 9, and LSU 10. Go ahead and bookmark this so you can make fun of me if it doesn't happen, or you can say, hey, Preston called that the Oregon Ducks were going to win the national championship in 2027.